A big day in politics and for the coalition. Joining me, the Deputy Nationals Leader Kevin Hogan. Kevin, thanks for your time. I need to start by putting to you some of the character assessments and descriptions of the behaviour of your leader, David Littleproud, in the last few days. I'll get your thoughts. I'll read a few of them for you. I won't read them all, but I'll read a couple to you. He says, I've spoken to 4 Liberal shadow cabinet ministers, and among the quotes that I've been given, David Littleproud has just united the Liberal Party room behind Susan Lee in a way that was impossible 24 hours ago. This ends with David being rolled, not Susan. Thank you, David. He's a pathological liar. Everything Barnaby Joyce said is true. David Littleproud is paralysed by fear. Matt Canavan is running the show. And this one, we can never go back into coalition with the Nats with Littleproud as leader. He has done this twice. He will do it again. He is impossible to deal with. He misled his own party room while lying to us. I would trust Pauline Hanson before I trusted Littleproud. This is from a range of Liberal shadow cabinet ministers. I've spoken to 4 directly. I've heard from other Liberal sources as well. How do you react to that, a description of your leader as a pathological liar?
Well, Kieran, obviously I don't agree with those accusations against David, and I note that they're anonymous accusations as well, so it's hard to retaliate against anonymous accusations. But look, Kieran, I can tell you very honestly that, and some of those shadow ministers may not have been in some of the leadership meetings that have been happening between over the last few days as well, and not been privy to all the conversations that were had, either in defence of them maybe. But David has been very transparent within the Nationals party room. Kieran, he's been very transparent. I've been to a number of meetings that he's had with the Liberal leadership as well. So he has the overwhelming support of our room, because we all know what he's saying is what was agreed in the room, and he's been very transparent about the process that we have followed.
At the Shadow Cabinet meeting, I was advised that he said and made clear to the Shadow Cabinet that you had concerns, that those concerns were alleviated and shouldn't be a problem. You'd go back to the party. Is that true?
Well, Kieran, I can't actually, and the person who said that should be commenting on Shadow Cabinet anyway, because Shadow Cabinet meetings are in confidence and not supposed to be commented on. But I will say this about meetings outside of Cabinet, and I would say, I don't necessarily, let's say there'd be conjecture around that being what happened in Shadow Cabinet. But Kieran, we had huge issues with the legislation. That has been made clear before Shadow Cabinet, during Shadow Cabinet and post-Shadow Cabinet. We, as you know how Parliament worked this week on Monday and Tuesday, it was very fluid. The legislation wasn't final. There was nothing to really comment on Sunday, because there was nothing in finality there. We expressed, there's been major concerns expressed. What happened, Kieran, was on Tuesday, when the legislation was going through the House of Representatives, we had a leadership meeting, and David said to Susan that we couldn't support the legislation as it was. It was put to us, well, don't vote for it against it in the House of Reps. Move the amendments that you're comfortable with, that would make you comfortable. Move them in the Senate, and then if they get approved there, then we said, yeah, well, we'd then support the legislation in the Senate. But
let me read you the resignation letter from Bridget McKenzie, because I think Bridget McKenzie in her letter goes to this issue of whether there was an agreement at Shadow Cabinet. She says, while remaining deeply committed to the unity of the team and the authority of Shadow Cabinet, I was unable to support the decision taken on the legislation on the 18th of January 2026 to support the bill in its amended form. She's saying that there was a decision made to support the bill in its amended form. Is that true?
Well, in the sense that the legislation wasn't final, no, Kieran. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, for a bill to be approved by Shadow Cabinet and through the joint party room process, a whole lot of things didn't happen this week. There were a whole lot of things that normally would happen. I mean, we didn't have a joint party room on this, which we would normally have as well, Kieran. But what happened subsequent to Sunday is important too, Kieran. What happened post Sunday, and again, I believe David was very transparent. We went as leadership of Nationals to the leadership of the Liberal Party and said on Tuesday, before the bill went through the House of Reps, that we couldn't support it in its current form as a party room. Because remember, we hadn't introduced it to the room either until after Sunday, because the bill was very fluid. So we took the bill, as we should, to our room, or the latest version of it, of which there were many. We landed as a party room, and this is important, Kieran. We landed as a party room on Tuesday before it went through the House of Reps, so we couldn't accept it. The party was against that bill at that current form at that time. So out of respect to the Liberal Party,
Does this show that David Littleproud has no authority and that your party really is being dictated to by Matt Canavan? That's the view among senior Liberals. And I'm talking, I'm saying across the spectrum within the Liberal Party that your party, the show is being run by Matt Canavan, that your leader is paralysed by fear. That's how it was put to me.
Well, that's said from a person who doesn't sit in the party room, obviously, Kieran. So, because that's not how we're operating. Matt obviously is a very valuable member of our party room who makes great contribution. Kieran, we went through a very democratic process within the party room that the majority of the party room were not comfortable with the bill. What should we do then, Kieran? We, of course, should go to the Liberal Party straight away, as we did, and said, we can't support this. And as a matter of goodwill and grace, we said, look, we'll abstain in the House of Reps, move our amendments. If they get accepted, we can then support the bill. But we were transparent then to Kieran and said, if we can't get those amendments through, our senators will vote against it. And if it comes back to the House of Reps, we'll vote against it because we won't be supporting it either. Now, when that happened, we then had another situation. So, Kieran, I, along with David and others, I did not want yesterday for the news today to be the breakup of the coalition. I was working with Liberal colleagues and said, let's find a solution that meant that we don't have to break up or we don't have resignations.
It's just a bit hard to get my head around at the moment when I'm just looking at the letter and it's in black and white, Bridget McKenzie saying that a decision was made when to support the legislation if amended as the coalition sought fit. And it's been put to me again by senior Liberal members of Shadow Cabinet that every concern that you had was put to the government and was responded to quickly and included in the bill. So how do you go to the government with what you wanted and go to the Liberal Party? The Liberal Party takes it to the government, they amend the legislation and you still vote against it? Because,
Kieran, that didn't happen. We had concerns, and with all due respect, some of the Liberal shadow ministers did a great job. Michaelia Cash, Andrew Wallace, John O'Donoghue, I thought did a great job. They all came to our room. We went through the bill. We had some specifics. As I know you're aware, this is very delicate, legalistic legislation when it's involving free speech and what people can and can't do. We were getting advice as well from experts as well. We had a couple of examples where we weren't comfortable with, which they were clear on. They knew exactly where we were uncomfortable with the bill and we couldn't get comfort on that. So we, in good conscience, said, look, we can't support it. So we got to that.
Were amendments made to satisfy your concerns? You deny that amendments were made to satisfy National Party concerns. They weren't made. Because it's been put to me by senior Liberals that they were made at your behest and you still voted against it. In fact, I was told that Susan Lee's office apparently huddled around the TV to watch which way you were going to vote in the upper house. They didn't know.
Kieran, amendments were made, a lot of amendments were made and did make, we agree, made the legislation better. Amendments were not made to our satisfaction, and that was understood because of the especially around, we wanted to confine as much as we could just to areas of violence. But it was also, and this is now where we need to be really clear too, Kieran, it was broadcast very loudly because we didn't want to surprise them that if our amendments didn't get up, that our senators would not vote for that legislation, and neither would we if it came back to the House of Representatives. Now, when that occurred on Tuesday night, yesterday myself and others were saying we need a pathway out of this. So there were solutions put like, well, because of the extenuating circumstances, the way this bill was rushed, it was, had to go through processes very quickly and didn't go through a lot of what would normally happen with parliamentary processes. It was said, well, look, because of the extenuating circumstances, if those three senators sign a public document saying they would adhere to Shadow Cabinet solidarity, there are extenuating circumstances this week, that will be forgiven because of the unique situation of this week, and you don't have to then accept their resignations. We then won't all have to resign and have this situation unfold. Now, that wasn't acceptable.
Was it a bad call for David Littleproud to say you wouldn't be able to enter into a coalition under Susan Lee leadership? Because there's been a lot of backlash to me this morning on that from Libs saying, who is he to say who the Liberal leader should be?
Well, David was saying that in the context that he was asked what would have to happen for us to go back into a coalition, and the conversation that I understand happened. Yeah. The conversation between them, David said to Susan, you would have to accept those three senators back into their shadow cabinet positions, of which she was not willing to do. So that was the context of that comment.
So you agree with him? You can't have a coalition under Susan Lee's leadership?
In the context that Susan will not accept those three senators back into their positions.
But if she did, you would. But it sounded to me and to everyone else like he was saying he can't deal with her. That's how it's been read. And there's been a lot of blowback, including from those you wouldn't describe as Susan Lee supporters.
Well, the context, the context that I took that was, it was in the context that he was asked what would take it to happen. And he said he put to Susan that those three senators would have to be accepted back into shadow cabinet, and Susan was not willing, and it's her prerogative to do that, and that was the context of those comments.
It looks like a long way off, doesn't it, the coalition healing itself?
Well, Kieran, it is. And look, I can tell you right now, very honestly, that I spent a lot of my day yesterday trying to get to a situation that we could agree to get through this without this happening. That wasn't achieved. I'm very disappointed. I certainly didn't come to Canberra on Monday thinking I was going to be resigning my shadow cabinet position on Wednesday night.
Kevin Hogan, thanks. Appreciate it.